Let's move on to some public criticism. No golf. I don't golf anyway. Anyway, let's move on to some public criticism of LeBron James from a former opponent. Rasheed Wallace was on the $1 Million Worth of Game podcast and criticized LeBron, said he wouldn't be able to thrive in Sheed's era. Here's the quote. He probably would have held his own, but I don't think he would be as successful as he is now. It's a whole different era back then.
LeBron James and Michael Jordan, it wasn't trash talk and it wasn't hate. It was a statement about respect, about how greatness is earned, and about what separates legends from everyone else. Wallace made it clear that this conversation wasn't about numbers, rings, or highlights. It was about something deeper. According to him, real respect in the NBA is not given, it is taken. And in his eyes, Michael Jordan took it, while LeBron James built his career another way. Wallace explained that LeBron James would have been able to play in his era. He never denied LeBron's talent. In fact, he admitted that LeBron would probably hold his own. But he also said that LeBron would not be as successful back then as he is today. That single statement set off a firestorm. Fans heard it as a direct attack on LeBron's legacy. But Wallace wasn't saying LeBron isn't great. He was saying the conditions that shape LeBron's success matter when judging respect and legacy. For Rasheed Wallace, the era matters because it defines how pressure was handled. In his time, players didn't move around when things got hard. They didn't look for better situations. They stayed and fought. If they lost, they took it personally. They came back stronger. Wallace believes that this struggle is where respect is born, not from assembling the best roster, but from surviving bad seasons, physical defense, and repeated failure without running away from it. When the discussion turned to Michael Jordan, Wallace's tone shifted. Jordan wasn't just another great player to him. Jordan represented a mindset. He walked into Chicago and took full responsibility for turning the franchise into a winner. He didn't ask for help. He didn't recruit stars. He didn't complain publicly. He lost to the Pistons again and again, and instead of leaving, he changed himself. He got stronger. He became more aggressive. Eventually, he broke them. That journey, Wallace says, is the foundation of Jordan's respect. Wallace pointed out that Jordan didn't need shortcuts. Every championship Jordan won came after years of failure and punishment. He earned every moment. When Jordan retired the first time, it wasn't because the game was too hard. Wallace joked that Jordan left because it became too easy. That may sound extreme, but it shows how dominant Jordan was in his era. He didn't escape competition, he exhausted it. Then Wallace compared that path to LeBron's career. After LeBron lost in the finals early in his career, he didn't stay and fight through it the same way. He made a choice. He left Cleveland and joined other stars in Miami. Wallace argued that this changed everything, not because it was illegal or wrong, but because it removed the struggle that builds legacy in the eyes of older players. Wallace made it clear that he does not believe super team championships carry the same weight. In his view, titles earned by stacking talent feel planned instead of earned. He described it as assembling success rather than fighting for it. That distinction matters to him and to many players from his era. They believe greatness should come when everything is against you, not when the odds are tilted in your favor. This is where the room became quiet during the interview. Wallace wasn't attacking LeBron as a person. He wasn't questioning his skill. He was questioning the path. He said respect is about what you do when you don't have options. Jordan didn't have an escape route. LeBron always did. That, according to Wallace, is the difference that no statistic can erase. When Wallace talked about Kareem, Jordan, and LeBron, he challenged the way people compare greatness. He admitted Kareem's accomplishments were incredible. He acknowledged records and longevity, but he insisted that Jordan's impact went beyond numbers. Jordan changed the game so much that the league had to adjust rules. Wallace said that's what real dominance looks like, when the league reacts to you, not the other way around. He also said that a player cannot be fully judged as the greatest of all time while still playing. In his opinion, greatness requires a full body of work. When you are still chasing records, still adjusting your game, still managing your legacy in real time, the story is not finished. That's why he refuses to put LeBron in the same category as Jordan yet, no matter how many points he scores. Wallace believes that being the greatest is not just about basketball. It's about presence, personality, and impact. It's about how a player carries himself, how he changes the culture, and how he inspires fear and respect across the league. Jordan had that aura. When teams faced him, they already felt beaten. Wallace argues that LeBron never created that same feeling league-wide. As the interview spread online, reactions were immediate and emotional. LeBron fans accused Wallace of being bitter. They said he was stuck in the past and unable to accept the modern game. But many older fans and former players agreed with him. They felt that Wallace finally said out loud what many have been thinking for years, that this debate is not about who has better stats, but about who earned their legacy the hard way. What made Wallace's comments even more powerful is who he is. He's not a commentator who never played. He's not chasing attention. He is a champion, a four-time All-Star, a player who faced both Jordan and LeBron. He has first-hand experience. When he speaks about eras, pressure, and respect, he speaks from the floor, not from a studio. Wallace also pointed out something many fans overlook. Jordan never blamed his team when he lost. He didn't say the roster wasn't good enough. He didn't publicly pressure management. He looked inward. He adjusted his game. He came back angry and focused.
Wallace believes this mindset is what separates Jordan from everyone else. LeBron's career shows a different pattern. When Cleveland couldn't win early, he left. When Miami's run ended, he left. When Cleveland peaked again, he left. When Los Angeles became unstable, questions started again. Wallace is not saying LeBron made bad decisions. He's saying those decisions shaped how his legacy is viewed. Moving on is smart. Staying and conquering is legendary. This argument hits harder because it can't be dismissed with numbers. LeBron's supporters often respond with stats, longevity, and versatility, but Wallace's criticism lives outside the stat sheet. It lives in perception, in memory, in how stories are told decades later. Jordan's story is simple. He stayed, he lost, he fought, he won. LeBron's story is more complex, and complexity often invites criticism. Another key point Wallace made was about desperation. He believes legends are born when players have no way out, when the pressure is unbearable and quitting is not an option. Jordan faced that pressure and answered it. Wallace says LeBron never truly faced a moment where escape wasn't available. That matters to people who value struggle over strategy. The silence from LeBron after these comments made everything louder. Usually, when LeBron is criticized, there is a response, a quote, a post, a message. This time, nothing. No denial, no explanation. That silence became part of the story. Fans began to wonder if Wallace's words hit too close to home. People also noticed LeBron unfollowing accounts that shared the interview. Not a public statement, but a quiet reaction. It showed that he saw it, that he felt it, that it mattered. And that reaction only fueled more discussion. At its core, this is not a personal feud. It's a clash of philosophies. The old school belief that greatness must be suffered through, and the modern belief that players should control their careers and maximize success. Both views have value, but Wallace argues that only one earns timeless respect. Jordan, Kobe, Dirk, these are players Wallace points to as examples. They stayed, they failed publicly, they took criticism, they responded by getting better, not by leaving. Their loyalty became part of their legend, their pain became part of their greatness. LeBron changed the game forever. Player movement, power, control, these are part of his legacy. Wallace acknowledges that, but he also believes that in changing the system, LeBron lost the chance to earn the type of respect Jordan has, not because he isn't great, but because greatness was achieved differently. Wallace even criticized Jordan in the interview, showing he isn't protecting anyone. He questioned Jordan's defense awards. That proves his comments about LeBron were not bias or worship. When Wallace speaks, he speaks honestly, even if it upsets everyone. This debate will never end. Jordan versus LeBron is more than basketball. It's about values, about struggle versus strategy, about loyalty versus movement, about how legends are built. Wallace believes Jordan's legacy is clean and complete. LeBron's is impressive but complicated. In the end, Wallace said something far more damaging than calling LeBron overrated. He said LeBron may never earn the same respect, and respect, once lost or never gained, cannot be fixed with trophies or records. That's why this conversation hurts more than any criticism LeBron has faced before. The question now is not whether LeBron is great. He is. The question is whether greatness alone is enough to earn legendary respect. Wallace doesn't think so, and that belief is shared by many who lived through a different era of basketball. This is why the silence continues, because there is no easy response. You can't argue philosophy with stats. You can't erase career choices. You can only accept that different generations see greatness differently. Rasheed Wallace didn't attack LeBron's talent, he attacked the story. And stories are what last forever in basketball history. The reason the story keeps growing is because it forces fans to confront something uncomfortable. Basketball debates usually feel safe when they stay around points, rings, and awards. Those things can be counted and compared. What Rasheed Wallace did was pull the debate into a place numbers can't reach. He questioned the emotional weight of LeBron's career, the feeling people get when they think about what he went through to win. That's why this hit harder than any normal hot take. Wallace's main argument keeps circling back to one idea.
Pressure reveals character. In his era, pressure was constant and unavoidable. There was no player empowerment, no social media teams managing narratives, no easy exits. When you failed, everyone saw it. When you lost, you owned it. Wallace believes Jordan thrived in that environment. The pressure didn't bend him, it sharpened him. Each loss made him more dangerous, not more restless. LeBron's supporters often say he faced more pressure than anyone because of expectations placed on him as a teenager. Wallace doesn't deny that. What he challenges is how LeBron responded to that pressure. Instead of staying and forcing success where he was, LeBron chose to reshape the environment around him. Wallace sees that as smart, but not legendary. In his mind, legends don't adjust the environment, they dominate it. This is where the generational divide becomes obvious. Younger fans see LeBron's moves as business decisions. They see intelligence, self-awareness, and control. Older players see avoidance. They see someone who refused to sit in discomfort long enough to transform it into greatness. Neither side is completely wrong, but they are speaking different languages. Wallace also touched on something rarely discussed openly: fear. He implied that Jordan made teams fear him in a way LeBron never did. Not fear of losing, but fear of being exposed, fear of being embarrassed, fear of being broken over time. Jordan punished teams mentally. Even when he wasn't playing well, his presence changed how opponents played. Wallace argues that LeBron, despite his dominance, never fully owned that psychological edge. Another reason Wallace's comments landed so strongly is because he framed LeBron's career as planned. He described it as engineered success. The moves, the timing, the rosters, all carefully thought out. Again, this isn't an insult to intelligence, but in the old-school mindset, planning success removes the chaos that creates legends. Jordan didn't know how the story would end. He forced it to end his way. As the conversation spread, more former players quietly echoed Wallace's thoughts. Not all publicly, but enough to show this wasn't an isolated opinion. Many of them feel modern players are protected from failure in ways past generations weren't. Failure today is explained away. Failure back then defined you. Wallace believes Jordan let failure define him until he crushed it. LeBron's silence continues to add weight to Wallace's words. Silence, especially from someone who usually controls the narrative so carefully, feels like admission to some fans. Others say it's maturity. Either way, it keeps the focus on Wallace's argument instead of LeBron's defense. Every day without a response lets the idea sink deeper into public opinion.
There's also the issue of loyalty. Wallace never said players must stay forever. What he criticized was the pattern, the repeated exits when situations stopped being perfect. Jordan never looked for perfect conditions. He created them through force of will. Wallace believes loyalty isn't about staying for the team, it's about staying for the challenge. When Wallace talked about legacy having an asterisk, he wasn't talking about cheating or rules. He was talking about perception, how future generations will tell the story. Jordan's story will always sound like a war. LeBron's will sound like a strategy guide. Both impressive, but only one inspires fear and reverence in Wallace's eyes. This debate also exposes how much basketball has changed culturally. Today's stars are brands. They manage image, partnerships, and influence. Jordan was a brand too, but it grew after domination, not alongside it. Wallace feels LeBron's brand grew in parallel with his career, which softened the edge of his dominance. What really frustrates LeBron's critics is that he had the talent to follow Jordan's path. Wallace even implies this. He suggests LeBron could have stayed, suffered, and eventually broken through the same way. That makes the criticism sting more. It's not about inability, it's about choice. Choice is the central theme of Wallace's argument. Jordan chose pain. LeBron chose control. Jordan chose uncertainty. LeBron chose optimization. Wallace respects one more than the other, and respect, once again, is the word he keeps returning to. As fans argue online, the debate has grown beyond basketball. It's now about how people define greatness in general. Is greatness about results or process? Is it about winning at all costs or winning under the hardest conditions? Wallace believes the process matters more than the result. LeBron may finish his career with records that never get touched. Points, longevity, versatility, none of that is questioned. But Wallace argues that respect doesn't live in record books. It lives in stories told by players who were there. And many of those players tell Jordan's story with a different tone. The uncomfortable truth is that both legacies can exist without one erasing the other. But Wallace doesn't believe they should be weighed the same. In his mind, LeBron belongs in the conversation, but not at the top, not when respect is the currency. This is why this argument will never die. It's not something a final championship can fix. It's not something retirement will automatically solve. It's a philosophical split that reflects how the game and the world has changed. Rasheed Wallace didn't just criticize LeBron. He challenged an entire generation's idea of success.
And whether fans agree or disagree, the fact that LeBron hasn't answered speaks volumes, because some arguments can't be won with words, and some questions don't have answers that satisfy everyone. In the end, Wallace left fans with a harsh reality. You can be one of the greatest players ever and still not earn the highest level of respect from those who value struggle above all else. That doesn't make LeBron a failure, but it does mean his legacy will always be debated, questioned, and divided. And that division, more than anything else, is why Michael Jordan still stands alone in the eyes of players like Rasheed Wallace.